All right, we are back on MorningLine. Thanks for joining us. As you see, Davidson County Sheriff Daron Hall is joining us this morning. We can take your phone calls and comments on Facebook if you'd like as we move through the program. And Daron, waiting through the break was who else? He hasn't talked to you in a while. Let's go to Joe. Joe, good morning. Hi, Joe.
Good morning, Nick.
Morning.
And, Sheriff.
Good morning, Joe.
I couldn't have said it better than what the sheriff alluded to early on about what kind of problems that you face when you're running a jail or a prison system with the inmates. And I don't think the general public has an idea of how much care that they do get, even though they're incarcerated. Most of them get as good a care as the general public would get, maybe better. I could go into a long detail on it because I have an inside information on the prison system, but I won't do that. But this guy Friedman, I don't see why that the federal government can't charge him with terrorism. And the guys that was helping him, I hope they get those 3 guys too. And as far as I'm concerned, they can, once they get Friedman in there, they ought to keep him for as long as they can. This guy caused a massive problem, and it's still causing problems.
Now listen, Joe's on it. Let's get to this. And just because we're streaming live on Facebook as well, I know many of the viewers like Joe that call in are familiar with this story. Just nutshell, I know you can go into a lot of detail, but the whole case with Alex Friedman, the idea, and it became national news that he had found a way to get some weapons into the construction process of the new facility. And to this day, Sheriff, we still don't know exactly, right, what his ultimate plan was on all this. Maybe you know more than you can share, but federal charges came down yesterday. He already facing, charges locally. But give folks a sense of just, real quick, give me a sketch for the folks maybe that aren't familiar with this.
Yeah, so Alex Friedman, a national advocate for safer jails and prisons, he had done time himself years ago, became a very prominent figure in the world of protests and so forth of jails and prisons because of safety reasons. For what I believe, and this is just me, for over a year, maybe 2 years, worked on a plan to pretend that he was a construction worker, disguised himself, came in and out of the construction site for well over a year and a half, physically, and planted weapons, guns, loaded guns inside the secure area of the facility. He was eventually caught very, very late in the process, just a week or so from us opening the building. We caught him while he was stealing some of the keys, a couple of the keys that would have been critical to his plan. Very fortunate our staff were doing a fantastic job and caught him. That led to an initial arrest of burglary and burglary tools, which allowed us to monitor, video surveillance of the facility for the better part of 6 months, and we found his elaborate plan, evil, very evil, and Nick, like I said, it's a movie for all the wrong reasons. I mean, to be honest with you, there are heroes in this story, and it sounds silly, but I've been around this all my life, and this. I'm an advocate trying to help people who want to turn their life around, mental health, addictions. I'm not a throw the key away kind of guy, but this person wasn't addicted, and this person wasn't mentally ill. This person is evil, and what he did. And he should not be, rewarded by reducing a sentence or anything because we caught him. His plan was to end lives, and his plan would have allowed hundreds of the most violent and serious offenders we have to be freed. all while taking the life of my staff.
Is that, Sheriff, is that what you think the end game here was, that he planted? And just so folks know, they were planted in the construction of the wall, fake wall units, not like he hid it under a bed or something, or a cot. I mean, they were hidden, well hidden, something that you guys wouldn't have seen if you hadn't caught it and checked the surveillance. But where the idea for him would have been, at some point, once this facility opened, maybe even for himself to get in there, or to let the inmates know where they could find these weapons and initiate an uprising, which could have led to, the employees there being shot and killed, and an escape or a riot or something like that inside this new facility. I mean, is that ultimately what you think the plan was?
Yeah, and Nick, you know this, but one thing the viewers don't know is that our staff aren't armed, and most people are very shocked. That's all over the country. There's not a jail or prison in the country where there are guns behind the wall in the secure area, so to speak. Alex Friedman knows that. And so when he planted loaded guns inside an area where the people who are to secure you don't have weapons, and then there's no other reason or way that you would want a loaded gun. I mean, I've been around this all my life. There have been issues where someone has come into the booking room and they weren't searched correctly by a police department person, and a gun would get in the front door. And I mean, that's a major concern of ours for a month, studying how it happened and what happened, and just think how dangerous that would have been. These were planted inside the facility, inside the walls. This is all in the federal documents yesterday, so that once people and once himself, I believe, would have been a part of that, it would have allowed you to take everything you needed out of there, inmates, staff, and there's just no other reason you would want a loaded gun. I mean, it's very unusual to have weapons such as handcuff keys and razor blades and saw blades, and those were all found as well. That would be, to me, a national story if you'd planted all that inside inside the facility. But when you're talking about loading guns and ammunition, additional ammunition, and planting that inside the facility, there's just no other word but evil. And there was going to be, I read this yesterday from the U.S. attorney. I'm quoting him. I haven't heard it out of his mouth. I read it, that he said it was going to be a bloodbath. That's the U.S. attorney.
Crazy.
And
I mean, Sheriff, what's odd about this, and some people, say, well, how did this guy pull this off? And we talk, as you mentioned, that he was a prominent, advocate for prison reform. He's someone that every media market, or every station in this media market, has interviewed. Okay, we've sat down with him. Reporters in our newsroom have interviewed him. You said that you had a cordial relationship with him, and that you had met with him when he sometimes wanted to come and talk about various grievances, as he did at jails and prisons across the state. I mean, this guy, by all accounts, in our experience, was rational. So at some point, that dude went over the deep end, okay? And I don't know what his end game was that could have possibly helped his cause if he felt he was going to do something that would help his case about prison reform by turning violent. I mean, do you imagine, and we're just guessing here, but did he just snap? I mean, did he just lose it? I mean, it doesn't make sense that this fits in any way with him trying to bring prison reform. What the heck?
Yeah,
you
Nick,
knew him. You sat across from him, close. You knew him well. I knew him. We all knew him. And then all of a sudden, we didn't see him, and then this happens, and it was hard to believe.
Yeah, I'm not going to give him a pass. He didn't snap.
Okay.
And here's the thing. The reality of this wasn't an overnight thing. He didn't wake up one morning and drive over there and drop some guns in. This has been in the works for months, years, to be honest with you. And the data, the dates that line up, the situations, I mean, we've all reflected in our agency. I mean, this man was in my office meeting about privatization issues that he was concerned about. I was meeting with advocates for a year, monthly, I guess it was, or every other month, something like that. He was in that room. Literally, we have him lined up in my office while that same week sneaking in and planting a gun. There is nothing else but evil. He needs to be held accountable. And what bothers me, and I'm not trying to be funny, but I've always found it weird that society gives you a break if you attempt murder but you don't accomplish it. You attempt burglary, but don't accomplish it. To me, the sentence should be the same. For what you attempted to do, you shouldn't get a break because we outsmarted you. We caught him. We were able to, thank God, our staff did an incredible job in finding, catching him, figuring out what he did, and then all the investigations will work to the courtroom. But he doesn't deserve a break because it didn't happen. Nick, this would have been, as the U.S. Attorney said, a bloodbath, and that angers me. And beyond the fact that he wasn't addicted and strung out and broke in your house to sell something to make his, that's not what happened at all. This was an evil plan. It was hypocrisy. He was planning and claiming to be something in the disguise, not only a construction worker, but an advocate worried about safety, challenging issues that we might put staff and inmate at risk. That was who he claimed to be. That's evil.
Yeah.
And as far as I'm concerned, there is no sentence that's going to work for me. My staff, the inmates that I care about, the situation that we have to work with, it's hard enough to run one of these facilities without some knucklehead like this, putting you at risk. It just angers the crap out of me.
Sheriff, I tell you, I've known you for a long time, and I've never seen you as upset about something, and with good reason. I understand why you feel that way. Look, we have to take a break. When we come back, I want to talk more about the sentence, because there were some sentencing guidelines in yesterday's release that I know are just a portion of it, because some people were saying, 10 years for this? He's got to get more than that if he's convicted. And let's talk a little bit about the point that, you have him, but he has at least 3 accomplices we think that are still out there, and apparently he's not talking. We'll get into more of those details, and we'll look at some of the comments on Facebook as well as some phone calls right after this for Davidson County Sheriff Daron Hall. Interesting conversation. We'll be right back.
The Storm 5 weather update. For weather on the go, download the Storm Shield app.
Hi, everyone. From the Storm 5 Weather Center, I'm News Channel 5 meteorologist Henry Rothenberg. Showers and some rumbles of thunder as we take